Good evening, everybody. Today is the second Fertility Experts Live that we are doing on Fertility Help Hub. I'm just about to be joined by the lovely Kate Davis, and we will be talking all things about COVID and fertility treatments, what's going to be happening. I believe she has something to share with us, so let me just see whether she's joined. Nope, just waiting. She'll be there any second. So we'll talk about that. And we'll also be talking about what you can do during this time. Here we are. Hi, Kate. To optimise the time in the clinic open. Let's see if the connection works now. Hello, everyone who's joining. Thank you very much for joining. Looking forward to chatting. Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, considering. Lovely to see you.
And you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great.
Great. And hello to everyone who's joining. Before we start, I just wanted to say, if anyone has any questions whilst we're talking, please feel free to type away and we will go through them as and when we can. So Kate Davis is the guest this evening. She is an independent fertility nurse, consultant and coach. And I'd love you to just give everyone a little bit of your background, please, before we start.
Sure, yeah. So as you rightly say, I'm an independent fertility nurse consultant, and I have my own practice, Your Fertility Journey. And I tend to work with women who are trying to conceive pregnancy naturally or going through an IVF journey, and to help them optimise their fertility and their ability to conceive. And clearly with IVF as well, and being a fertility coach, I work with them to kind of get through that difficult emotional journey as well. And I've been doing it for 6 years now.
Wow.
And I work, luckily for me, with this current time, I work from my home office here. And I see all my patients by the wonders of online video, which now everyone is using as our method of keeping in touch with family and friends. So
it shows it can be done, doesn't it?
100%.
When you have to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really, really busy at the minute, particularly with all the fertility treatments being cancelled. I'm finding that loads of ladies are reaching out to me for support.
I'm not surprised.
And for help, and especially because during this time when you can't do fertility treatments, they want to be able to find out what things they can be doing to optimize their fertility in this time, so that when fertility treatments restart, that then they can be kind of back into it quickly,
as prepared as possible.
Yeah, 100%.
Which we're going to talk a bit about in a minute.
We are. Yes.
So we're going to start by talking a bit about fertility treatments, what's going to happen after lockdown is over. I believe you may have some kind of update to share with us, so I don't know what that is. So tell me as and when you want to talk about that. But what do you envisage happening with your obviously medical background once this lockdown is lifted around the world?
Yeah, well, I think there's obviously a lot of unknowns, and I know people are desperate to start fertility treatments up again. And I know that from my experience with my patients, a lot of women are really concerned that time might be running out for them, especially if they're a little bit older or if they've got a low ovarian reserve. So I think there are a lot of unknowns, which I think is definitely contributing to everybody's anxiety around when fertility treatments are going to restart. Definitely clinics have got contingency plans in, and some clinics have completely closed, but some clinics are seeing some patients for online consultations, blood testing, that type of thing. So there are some things that are going on at the moment. And I think there's definitely been a rise in online consultations, and I think that will probably continue for quite a long time. I think when clinics do start, and I've been doing a lot of research into this over the last week and talking to various clinics to find out what they're doing, and also the regulatory bodies, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And I think the general consensus is that there'll be probably staggering consultations, because their primary objective will be to start treatments, but to keep everybody, including their staff, safe. So there'll definitely be staggering consultations. The clinics will be less busy. There probably will be a limit on how many people can attend with you, because sometimes people like to have lots of people coming, so that might be a little bit stricter. And I think they may start off doing a lot more investigations before they actually go straight into treatments, which it probably in many ways isn't a bad thing. I think also there's going to be complications around women who are probably in a more of a time sensitive bracket. So those are women who are, like I mentioned, older, or women with lower ovarian reserve, and women that maybe have embryos, or couples I should say have embryos in the freezer that actually they need to start using. So what we think, and again, please don't quote me on any of this, because
it's changing.
It's changing.
100%.
This whole COVID-19 situation is changing from day to day. But what we think is those patients will be seen first,
prioritized,
which is great if you're in that bracket. Not so great if you've had your fertility treatments put on hold and suddenly
further waiting, which is absolutely devastating. I think there's a lot of concern in the UK about NHS eligibility criteria and whether there might be any change in that. And again, that's one of the unknowns that we don't know. But what is literally hot off the press, and I literally found out this 10 minutes ago, I'm not joking. Okay.
So I've been doing quite a lot of research, like I said, and I had an email earlier today, this afternoon, from ESHRE, which is the European Society for Human and Reproductive Health, and they don't govern necessarily the UK, but we take a lot of information from them, and they have kind of definitely said that similar things to I've mentioned, but also high risk patients for COVID-19. So ladies with diabetes, high blood pressure, those who are immunosuppressed, will probably not start treatments immediately. Now, I think hopefully that's only a very small percentage of women, but understandably their health has got to come first in all of this. So that was from ESHRE, and a little bit other information similar to the kind of things that I've already talked about. But the really big news is today the HFEA, which for anyone who's in the US, in the UK, that this is our governing body, they sent a letter out to all clinics, and this letter has said that soon fertility treatments can restart as long as each individual clinic can provide 4 criteria.
Okay.
And I've got their criteria listed down here because I know
Great.
I won't be able to remember them otherwise. My brain won't keep it in.
Okay.
So the first one is that social contact or social distancing can be maintained, and that it's actually safe and easy to travel to the clinic on public transport. So that's the first criteria. The second one is that they need to prove that starting treatment won't have any negative effect on the NHS. So the reason why treatments were stopped initially was to reduce the burden. So, for example, to give one example, with IVF, you've got a higher risk of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and therefore there's a concern that in that situation you're then burdening the NHS. And I don't like the word burden, but you know what I mean, because you require a hospital bed and hospital treatment if it's very bad. So that as long as the clinics can maintain that starting treatment won't have a negative effect on the NHS, and I guess that's where the high risk patients might come into it a bit as well.
Sure. Is it also slightly, in terms of when you say the burden on the NHS, the fact that a lot of doctors and people who have practiced medicine are being pulled in to help with the crisis?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So there aren't as many people around to be doing extra things outside of this.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of fertility clinics, that a lot of the staff have been redeployed elsewhere. Yeah. So of course you've got to get those staff back. Now what we know certainly in the UK is that luckily the Nightingale Hospital, for example, in London hasn't been needed, luckily, to be utilised in the way that we thought it would be. So what I think we're seeing is that hospitals are managing at the moment. And hopefully we have gone past the peak. So they do seem to be managing. So therefore it's likely that the staff can be taken back into their
right.
Okay.
Yes, well, that's reassuring to hear.
It's really reassuring. So that's the second criteria.
Yep.
The third criteria is that we need to be absolutely sure, which we pretty are sure, that there is no evidence of impact of COVID-19 on pregnant women and the baby. So we're pretty sure of that. Although, again, a lot of unknowns and still a lot of research waiting to come out. And the fourth thing is that the clinics all need to be able to prove that the clinic is a safe place for both patients and staff.
Okay.
So as long as they can prove those 4 criteria, then they will be able to open. Now, again, this isn't a confirmation of any time, because I know that's what everybody wants to know. No confirmation of time, but I think it's believed from the clinicians that I've heard from, is that they would hope that would start at the end of May.
Great.
So that isn't so far away, and that's,
No.
to be honest, sooner than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And we're about to come on to ways in which people can utilize this time, which if we're talking about end of May, is actually only sort of 6 weeks around the corner. So
exactly. So it's not,
use this time to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I must just give a little shout out to Natalie from Fertility Body, because she told me this information from the HFEA.
Oh, did she?
So she'd heard it. So thank you, Natalie.
Brilliant. Thank you so much,
timing.
Natalie. I'm sure everyone is delighted to be hearing a positive update.
Yeah.
And as I said at the beginning, if you've got any questions for Kate as we talk, please just ask. I know you're happy to answer them, so thank you.
Any fertility question or anything that you want to ask, please ask away, and I will do my very best to answer it.
So that's in the UK. Any more news in terms of other countries in the world?
No, I'm keeping a really close eye on the ASRM, so that's the American Society. I haven't seen an update from them today, but I looked earlier, and I'm wondering now, with all of this coming out, whether that will start. But I suspect this will be an international thing. I can't imagine that it will differ hugely everywhere. But saying that, I know that the US are actually struggling at the moment, and they are having a huge amount of COVID-19 deaths, and they are really at capacity. So it might be that they're not there yet with their ability to open clinics, or certainly maybe not all states. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, it really is changing day by day, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is,
Great. Well, thank you for that update, and thank you, Natalie. Let's move on to the second topic of this evening, which is ways in which, and hopefully this is only until the end of May, but ways in which you can utilise time at home during lockdown to prepare your body and your mind, because obviously you have the coaching expertise as well, to prepare for when clinics do reopen and for when treatment can kick off again.
Yeah. So I think there's lots of really obvious things that you can be doing, and these might be slightly more challenging at this time, because I don't know about anybody else, but every night I want a gin and tonic.
I know, I'm the same. It's just Groundhog Day, isn't it?
It is, it really is. It really is. So that might be a bit more challenged, but I think everyone is ideally placed now to spend a little bit of time on their own physical health, and maybe making some plans about what you would like to do, and perhaps have a bit more of a routine where you can start implementing some of these things. So obvious lifestyle changes, if you're smoking, stop smoking, reduce your alcohol. I would say if you're about to start IVF treatments, then I would say try to avoid it completely. And I know that's difficult, and normally I recommend 1 glass of wine, of a Friday night isn't going to do you any harm, but actually when you're at this point critique, I think it's a good idea to stop completely. And that's for both partners, particularly because of the impact on sperm. I think, there's so many other things like reducing your caffeine. I think staying in is the new going out. So, there's no reason why we can't all try and be a bit healthier. We're not, like I said, we're not particularly good at doing it, but maybe it's at the moment, but it's those little things that you can start doing. And
mindset as well, practicing mindfulness, things like that.
Oh, yoga. 100%. Yeah, mindfulness, so important. I think right now we've got the opportunity to pause, and we will never, ever have this opportunity again. And my fear is that when all this is over, we are going to be racing at 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
So this is your opportunity to down tools, to pause, and not feel guilty for doing that. It's very much the opportunity to learn, if you're not already doing a meditation, learn how to meditate, learn mindfulness, whatever it is that you will get you through, because actually that learning that now, and as you probably know, Louise, it takes time to learn
It
that.
really
You can't
does.
just start doing it.
Yeah.
But learning it now will really help going forward.
I don't know about you, but I'm almost a little bit apprehensive about when things go back to normal, just because just the uncertainty, and I can't remember living normally now that we're into this crazy period, because it's been going on for so long.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it, actually, how quickly we get into a habit. So, for example, we're so used to now to social distancing. I went out for a run this morning. It was a beautiful morning, not many people around, but then suddenly there was another runner. And therefore, you know, automatically you're swerving around one another, giving each other space. So much so that when I was watching television the other night, I almost was taken aback to see people together.
I know.
On a television program.
I know. Yeah. I know. It feels so bizarre, doesn't it?
It feels so bizarre. We've kind of got used to that. But I think, again, you know, making the most of your allotted hour outside to go and exercise, taking the beauty of the spring in the UK at the moment and how it's all lovely, and to use that as a moment of mindfulness as well as enjoying your exercise.
We have been lucky with the weather, to be fair. I know it's difficult if you don't have any outdoor space, but it just makes you feel a little bit happier, doesn't it, when the sun is shining?
It does. I can't imagine doing all of this in the winter. It would have been horrendous.
I know.
And I think other things that people can be doing is, you know, thinking about getting good amount of sleep, because again, in this period of limbo where our routines are completely gone, I know a lot of people that are struggling with sleep because they don't have their normal routine of setting their alarm, getting up in the morning, going to work. So they're sleeping in, and then they're struggling to sleep at night, and then it's this vicious circle. So I think trying to get into a routine where you can go to bed at the normal time, have a normal bedtime routine, and a healthy routine, so that you can get your sleep, because prior to IVF, getting your sleep is really important as well.
Absolutely. And further to that, also just keeping a routine, so showering at the same time or a similar time every morning, and getting dressed, even though it's tempting to just lounge around, and having segments to your day like you normally would. Just to stop there, Infertility Blues asked, how important is it to avoid caffeinated beverages? I usually take 1 to 2 cups of either a tea or coffee.
Okay, so the recommendations are you can have 1 caffeinated drink a day, that's fine. But then after that, go to naturally decaffeinated. And we don't actually recommend decaf because of the substances that are used to take the caffeination out of the caffeine. Substances that are really quite nasty. We don't tend to recommend them. So I recommend something like red bush tea, which is naturally decaffeinated, or rooibos. Obviously your herbal teas, your fruit teas. I've been hearing a lot about, and I've not tried it, but I've been hearing a lot about Swiss water coffee, which uses water to take the caffeination out of the help, and therefore, I think you can get it. Well, normally you could get it in a lot of good roasteries, but I haven't seen it in the supermarket. I've not really looked, I have to confess, but I think definitely online you can get it, and certainly that would be a good option.
And it's probably not a product that's in high demand right now that you can't find in the local Sainsbury's. I'm sure online there'll be places to find these specialised things.
I think there would, So then after that, and you know, that's fine, and obviously drinking lots of water. So water is so important. Water hydrates you, it hydrates all your cells. So if you can imagine your egg, as your egg is developing, if you're dehydrated, then the egg's going to be more shriveled, just like every cell in your body. So to actually plump up the egg, have a nice healthy egg, keep really, really hydrated, especially as the weather's getting warmer in the UK.
Absolutely. Going back to the holistic thing, we just wrote an article about it on Fertility Help Hub if anyone wants to go to the website and read it. It's all about fertility meditation, and how you can change your mindset. And those are things that I didn't practice the first round of IVF when it didn't work. And I'm not saying that I had success because I did this, but it helped me prepare for my transfer the second time. Imagining, and it sounds strange to say out loud because I haven't practiced it for a while, but imagining my womb as a fertile garden, and these were visualizations that I was taught by an amazing hypnotherapist I went to see, and then when I had IVF the third time, after the success of the second time, I used those again, and I tried to use them in my everyday life too if I was ever feeling anxious. And they're really, really good ways, a really good way for me personally, of stopping my heart racing and taking me back to the moment and stop my mind wandering into the what ifs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of favorite ones that I tend to use with my patients, and one of them that is quite immediate, a bit like yours in stopping your mind wandering, because actually our mind doesn't realize when something isn't reality. So our mind will go off. You know, you often have these conversations with yourself in your mind, don't you? You might start arguing with
Yeah.
yourself because you're
Yeah.
imagining this scenario, and your mind is playing that, but actually
Yeah.
doesn't realize that that's not the reality.
And that scenario may never happen.
Oh, well, do you ever notice that frequently whatever you're worrying about never works out in the way that you've been worrying about it?
Yeah.
And that is just a prime example of how the mind has just gone there, yet you're still here in the present.
Yeah.
But the mind's way in the future.
Nightmare.
One of the things that I use is I get people to question and actually stop and think, where's the evidence that what I'm worried about is true? And invariably, there is absolutely no evidence. And just that makes you kind of come back, center yourself. You kind of feel your shoulders going down a little bit, and you kind of take a deep breath and you think, yeah, there is no evidence. There is no evidence whatsoever that what I'm worrying about is true.
Yes, that's a really, really good point. Really good point. I'm sure that resonates with everybody.
Yeah, and it's such an easy, easy one. The other one that I love is from worrier to warrior. And that's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But this one is more about getting into a deliberate habit of worry. So making it or allowing yourself to worry for a certain amount of time of the day. So it might just be half an hour, 20 minutes of worry in sitting in the same place, in a room, same chair, not the bedroom, but somewhere that you can go to form this deliberate habit of worry. And then just free write your worries down, but then categorize them into red, amber, and green. So using a traffic light system. And red being worries that are immediate and pressing and that you need to take action on. Amber worries that you don't need to take action on quite so quickly, but you need to plan for these. And then green worries are ones that actually you can't do anything about. So those are the kind of what ifs, or they're the, you know, those are what somebody else might think, feel, say, or do that you have no control over. Yeah. And those you just have to kind of let go. So that's quite useful.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Does anyone else have any questions? I can see someone just asked, are we able to save the video? Absolutely, it will go up on the stories. And also, if you want to go to Fertility Help Hub and sign up to the newsletter, then I'll also be sending out a link so people can watch it back on YouTube.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I don't know whether anyone else, I think some people have missed some of the stuff we were talking about at the beginning, so I would recommend watching it back just for the latest update that you've given from a medical standpoint.
Do you want me to reiterate that?
If you could just recap it might help the people who have joined, and if anyone has any questions, then just shout.
Okay, so it was about, the first part was talking about fertility treatments and how they're going to restart in the UK, and this is for the UK, but I think it may well be similar in other countries. And just to say that all the clinics have received a letter today from the HFEA, which is our governing body in the UK, and they have been told that there's 4 criteria that they need to be able to prove, and if they can prove these 4 criteria, which are that social distancing must be maintained, and that public transport is easy for people to travel to the clinics and safe, that any starting their treatment will not have a negative effect on the NHS, that there's no evidence of impact on the pregnant woman or the fetus, which we think there's not, we hope there's not, and that as long as they can prove that the clinic is a safe place for both patients and, importantly, staff as well. And what they hope, or what I'm hearing from clinicians that they hope will be the case, and this hasn't been confirmed, is that treatments might restart at the end of May, but please don't quote me on that, because it can easily change. And that's
absolutely. I think probably the best advice is just to keep listening to what's happening with the governing bodies, follow the right accounts for this information, and also check in with your fertility clinic if you've already got one. And if you're interested in starting treatment, then I'm sure lots of fertility clinics, as you said, I know, doing virtual consultations, and also are around on email or the phone. So definitely get in touch. We've just had a question. Kate, to your medical side, any successes with day 7 embryos that you've
Oh,
seen?
now that is one that is difficult for me to answer, because I've been out of that environment for quite a long time. So I'm going to have to say I don't know the answer on that one, but I can certainly find out for you. So if you message me, I will speak to somebody that I know that will definitely have the answer to that one.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, excellent.
There's been a couple more I've seen come in as well.
Have we missed any?
Yeah,
Will a private know if a patient has been issued with the NHS vulnerable person letter? I'd stay indoors for 12 weeks.
Right, okay. So I think it very much depends on why you've been issued with the NHS vulnerable person, because certainly what we do know is that high risk patients, and I mentioned about diabetes, high blood pressure, immunosuppressed, and there are a few others, they will probably be advised not to start treatment until it's safe to do so. So I think, Belle, it really depends on why you are a vulnerable person, and whether it's safe. But yes, I suspect the clinics will know. If that is the case, they will know that you have that diagnosis, whatever it might be, and they'll be advised based on that. So again, I think once it happens, then that would be a really good question to ask your clinic.
Okay. Bex has asked, has said that she's been taking melatonin to sleep. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. A lot of women do decide to take it. There's probably no reason why you couldn't, but I would definitely, if you're about to start fertility treatments, then I think it will, or you're hoping to start fertility treatments soon, then I think it would be a good one to ask your clinician if they're happy with that. I'm assuming you're taking it for sleep. So often that's the main reason why women want to take melatonin. But I would just double check that one.
Okay, someone's actually just said that their clinic recommended it, so I guess it's worth checking with your practitioner for personalised treatment plans. Do you think couples? We did touch on this earlier, and I don't think that you will. No one knows the answer to this yet, but do you think couples who are due to receive funding on the NHS for treatment before lockdown might be denied it when things reopen?
Due to receive a yes or no? Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that about whether eligibility will change. I don't think so. I think
might just be held up.
Yeah, there might just be delays a little bit, but I think if you were eligible then, as long as you're still eligible and there's been no change, then you shouldn't be denied treatment, I would hope. But there is going to be delays, and that's the problem, I think.
Okay. Those are just going on from what you were just talking about, melatonin. How long do you think it's okay to take it for?
Oh gosh, I have absolutely no idea. I wouldn't want to say. Again, you need to ask your clinician that.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Kate. Thank you for sharing the latest update. And for anyone who did just join, this will be reposted back. So please feel free to watch it. If you've got any questions for myself or Kate, then send them over and we can either direct you to the right person to answer them, or Kate can answer them for you. Great. Okay, sorry, one last question before you go. What would be your 5 top tips to improve egg quality?
Okay, so unfortunately improving egg quality is quite difficult, unlike sperm quality, which you can do a lot to improve. But that said, I think as long as you're healthy, you'll have good nutrition, you're taking the right supplements for you, then you're doing all you can. I mentioned about keeping really well hydrated. Those are all going to help. So it's just the general lifestyle things, really. Some women choose to take supplements such as ubiquinol or CoQ10. Sometimes clinics will prescribe DHEA to help improve egg quality and reserve. There's limited research as to whether or not they are actually helpful, but certainly for some women who perhaps are older, then that might be a possibility to take that.
Okay, great. And also, I guess if it helps people people's peace of mind. If it's not dangerous, then
yeah, absolutely. I think that the issue with CoQ10 that I think generally concerns us is we don't know what the safe dose is to take.
Okay.
There has been little research, but that's not to say that on an individual basis it might not be useful for someone.
So this would be a really good time to check in with a nutritionist to get more clarity.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. Yeah, nutritionists are so valuable. They can give a lot of really good information and can advise you on the supplements that are the best for you based on a whole host of different things. So yeah.
I think I was one of those annoying patients who almost emailed the nutritionist every single day. Is this the right amount? Am I doing this right?
Yeah, but they need to. And you know, there are some supplements like folic acid and vitamin D, which are really important, or folate, depending on your preference. But there are others that you can take, but you need to be assessed properly. And also, if you're about to have IVF, you need to make sure that you tell your doctors exactly what supplements you're taking in case there are any contraindications with any of the medication that you're being given.
100%. That's really good advice. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Kate. Bye, everyone. Bye.